This is Garage Ministries Shop Talk, encouraging you to live a better life. All right, today on today's episode of Shop Talk, I have Greg Miller with me. We're going to get to know him a little bit. And before we get started, I did want to show off my cross that I got there the other night. I went to an event. Did we talk the other day when we met? Did we talk about Project Hope?
No.
No, okay. So there's two facilities here in the Russellville area. That is one's called Project Hope and one's called Saving Grace. It's they're both a 12-month live-in recovery, faith-based recovery program.
Uh-huh.
And we went to the Saving Grace. They call it the Christmas Gala. It's basically a fundraiser for that program. So the men and women that go through this program, they don't have to pay. It's
That's
all
nice.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you know, they get a bed and they get food and I think they can. I don't know about the men's facility. The women's facility, I think they said the other night they can have up to like 30 something women at any time. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
the men's facility is really close to the same.
Yeah.
But so they did a silent auction. They also took a like an offering basically, and then they sell stuff, and that was one of the things. I saw that on the table, and I was
Yeah,
like,
that's pretty cool.
yeah, I was like, man, that's my style right there. So I had to help support them. The men and women make all that stuff. They make
Oh,
necklaces. Yeah, it's all made in house. So they're learning some skills while they're there as well too. It's a really cool program. Um, yeah, I've got to speak there a couple times, and we've gone there and served, painted. I did a dinner there. My men's group did a dinner there.
okay.
Um, man, I have a soft spot in my heart for those guys, just being from where I'm from, being through the
Right.
addiction. I never went to a
Yeah.
facility, but just kind of understanding that hole that they're trying to fill,
Yeah.
so. But we want to get to know you a little bit and just kind of get to know uh, the things that you love to do recreationally, outside of church and everything. Uh, you told me a pretty cool story. I mean, I'm a car guy. I'm a motorcycle guy. You're the same. You told me a pretty cool story about your motorcycle days, and I'd love to hear that again.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for having me on. This
Yeah,
is a great first podcast for me, but this is a great moment for me just to be able to do something like this. So, um, yeah. No, I'm a motorhead guy, man. I like to do cars and 4-wheel driving the most, and motorcycles, and I had a 900 Kawasaki from the 70s that I built for drag racing and street racing, and then I had a 80 Suzuki 1100 that we mildly built, and same thing, street racing and goofing around and riding. So, but I like to ride wheelies on motorcycles. So, um, in fact, in Zacapo, where I lived in Guatemala, I was known for that. They use motorcycles for they use like 125s, like the little Suzuki 125s.
yeah,
They use those for just getting around every day, right? And then all of a sudden, like I had an enduro bike there because the places where I worked was all rural mountain stuff. So, but I'd ride wheelies through town, just bing, 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 going through the gears and waving to the crowd, because I never saw nothing like that before we got there, and so I like that stuff. So uh, I was born in California and lived there, and then we moved. My folks moved back to Illinois because they were from Illinois originally, and so in Illinois, I got on. That's where I kind of had my teenager years, So I kind of got into the motorhead stuff and grew up in a rural community, a town of 450 people, farm community. So we always playing on motorcycles and doing stuff like that. So I am. So then I went through some hard times, and I felt like the Lord told me to go to Ohio. So to go to a certain church. All the moves I've ever made in my life were always to go to a church. It wasn't about jobs or anything like that. It was always
okay,
to do something to go to a different church I felt God was calling me to, or when I went to the mission field. None of my moves have ever been based on this lucrative, good job or any of that kind of stuff. So I always moved to go to a church, and then I figured that God would work out the rest. Um, so I get to Ohio and I get involved in the youth real quick, and pastor asked me to get involved, and I'd just been saved. We're talking months, maybe a year, and pastor's like, I want you to get involved in youth and stuff. So, but I was still pretty rough around the edges, as you can imagine. So, like, I'd come out of church on Sunday morning or Wednesday night, and I'd jump on my 1100 Suzuki, and I'd leave church. I'd snap the clutch a little bit and bring the front tire up and go through the gears, riding a wheelie and stuff like that. And the pastor's wife was always like, Pastor, you got to talk to him about that, man. He can't be doing that stuff, leaving church and all that stuff. And the pastor's like always patting it. He's like a 6'6" or 6'7" football player or a soccer player or baseball player. Yeah, I missed it all. Basketball player. Played. And so he's like, and his wife was like 4'8". So he was always tapping her on the shoulder, almost bending over to do it and saying, Corky, it'll be all right. He'll be all right. It's okay. So, but so that was like my beginning of my church life and my life in Columbus, Ohio was when I would do that and that stuff. And then, like the Lord, as I matured, the Lord said, look, man, you need to slow down. Because I'd be sitting on a street corner or a stoplight, and some guy would come up and start cracking the throttle, and it'd be on, right? You'd do a stoplight to stoplight drag race and stuff like that. But it was almost like an addiction to me, man, because I couldn't not do it.
Yeah.
So, so it came to a point where uh, God said, look, man, you got to stop riding a motorcycle. And like, I didn't really at the time, I didn't have what it took to sell the motorcycles. So I parked it in my kitchen in my apartment and I left it there for a year without getting on it.
Yeah.
So after about a year, I felt like the Lord said, okay, you're ready. And one day I changed oil in it, cleaned it all up, and actually kept it pretty clean anyway, but cleaned it all up and took it out. And the first stoplight I came to, some guy pulls up beside me on a motorcycle and starts cracking the throttle. He's like, hey, man. And I'm like, oh. And I'm sitting there, and I crack the throttle a couple times and light turns green and the dude takes off like a rocket, man. And I'm just like, blah, 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 just going through the gears and
Yeah.
heading down to the next stoplight. So, and I thought, well, yeah, here I am, man. I'm over this. So this thing doesn't control me anymore. I control it.
Yeah.
So,
That's a great story of sanctification. I think, like that's like it shows you, I mean, when you've been in this for a while,
right.
and I mean, I still consider myself green. I've got saved 4 years ago,
Yeah.
and uh, but I'm changing all the time. There's
Right.
things that even now, I lead a men's group, and even in my leadership style, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be the way. God's always going to be working on you. And I think that's such a great story. I can also relate to the in the kitchen thing because when I moved into this place, when I met my wife, I think I had 3 dirt bikes and my toolbox was in the kitchen, and she was like, "No, that's not gonna work,"
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so you sold the bike. So what do you do now for fun?
So I sold the bike. So, um, I mean, I still, God called me to go to Guatemala, and one of my favorite things to do is four wheeling. I love to go. I had some 4-wheel drive trucks, and I had a couple Jeeps, a Suzuki Samurai, Toyota trucks, and so when God called me to Guatemala, I already knew kind of like where I was going to be working. So and it was rural mountain. I mean, dirt clay roads that are always landsliding, a lot of rain and stuff like that. So it's almost like God took the two giftings that I felt like I had, which I don't know if that's a gifting, right? but I loved evangelism and I loved four wheeling,
Yeah.
and where God moved me to were the two most things that I got to do. So it was like the perfect thing for me, right? It
Yeah.
was just it was so awesome. So
I think that can be, because my mechanical ability, I
right,
consider that a gift from God,
yeah,
and I didn't know that for a long time, but how can you use that? How can you use that to evangelize? You
right,
know what I mean?
right,
So, uh, you get to have a good time and make it into some place where people don't get the gospel, but you can make it in there,
right,
and
right.
share the gospel. I have people that break down, uh, and if they're going to sit and watch me work on their car, they're going to hear about Jesus. You
Yeah,
know what I
for
mean?
sure.
So, it's just about using those
You
gifts.
know, one of the things that I guess God showed me early in my life. Now I got saved in like '84, so 82, 82. I probably late '82 or late '83. You know, I probably started thinking about it real hard and all that stuff. But then there just came a point like late '83, '84. I can't remember the exact moment, but um, I, I said, okay, this is it, man. You got it all. So, but but one of the things God showed me early on, and I say God because I feel like the Holy Spirit revealed this stuff to me because it's not stuff that a lot of people get, you know, and but it's like my job place, my secular job that I had. Uh, I always felt like that was my mission field at that moment. So
Yeah.
which was awesome because it made me a good employee because I didn't want to be a bad testimony,
Right.
right? So it
Right.
made me a good employee. You go the extra mile, you do the extra stuff. That didn't make me perfect, man. I tell you, I mean, I tell you how unperfect I was. There's a guy there that was always messing with me because I was a Christian and he was searching, right? He didn't know what he was searching for, but he was searching. And he was like, we call them river bottom guys, right? They live down by the river in downtown Columbus, and uh, so he was just always messing with me, man. And he would just say stupid stuff to me, you know, just degrading stupid stuff, and I was like, I'd put up with it.
Trying to get a reaction or
Yeah,
something.
well, one day I did react though. One day I turned around and almost knocked him out, man. He went to the floor, hit him in the face. He went to the floor, and then I was like, "What am I doing, man?" And I helped him up, and then I just walked away because I was still pretty mad. And later I went back and said, "Hey, man, I'm sorry. You know, I'm a Christian man, and that's not the right way to react. You know, and I'm sorry I hit you, man." And
Yeah.
but it was a turning point in his life, so
Yeah.
it was pretty cool because even though I didn't react right, God made it into a good thing.
I so I love that you talked about that because I'm in this place right now where I'm trying to figure out the best way to talk to people like that
Hmm.
because for whatever reason non-believers that are maybe sticking a toe in or kind of interested, they always look at us
Right.
and say, "Well, you're not." No, you're right. I'm not Jesus.
No.
No, you're right. You're
Nope.
absolutely right. And if you become a Christian, you won't be either.
Right.
But what it does, I've been thinking about this all week. This is going to be my topic at the next men's group. One of the things I want to talk about is it makes your life better. And what I mean by that is people in your life are still going to get sick. You're still going to have financial trouble. Um, you know, it's not that, but it's being able to deal with those things is easier. You're going to have more joy. I was thinking about somebody said to me the other day, well, that's not necessarily true. And I,
Uh-huh.
and I, and I, and I, that's why I've been thinking about it. And I was like, well, think about Job, you know, and, you think about how, yeah, he did get a little bit upset and, but he just always knew that God was there. Right.
Right.
And then in the end, he was gifted again.
Well, and it's like Well, first thing, God told me that my job place was my mission field because that's where I spent most of my time
Yeah.
consistently, right?
Yeah.
So I was always talking to those guys about the Lord the best I could. I wasn't like beating them over the head with the Bible,
Right.
but I was talking, and then when your testimony is such that it gives a good testimony, people relate to that. They see that. They see, wow, this guy is different, man.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you don't make mistakes because I made a lot,
Yeah.
but but I always think about that thing where things aren't going right. Like I think about Paul and Silas when they were incarcerated, they were
Yeah.
thrown in jail, right?
Right.
So I mean that's a cool story, right? In Acts chapter 16, because those guys are thrown into jail unjustly, right? So it doesn't seem fair to a Christian in the first place, right? Stuck in the worst part of the jail, and then what do they start doing, man? They start praying and crying out to God, right? I would have probably been crying more than praying, but at the same point, I would have been reaching out to God in some form or
Yeah.
way, right? And so those two guys, man, they're praying in the depths of the jail, and then there's a move of God,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and I look at that because okay, this is not the perfect situation, but they're looking for God, right?
Yeah.
They need an answer, right?
Yeah.
But they need the right answer. But then the next thing happens, the jail doors open up, and these guys have the opportunity to run.
Yeah.
Say, God responded to our prayers. Let's go,
Yeah.
right? And they don't do that. They look for God's plan in that situation,
Right.
right? And they said, look, man, to the jailer, he's there getting ready to kill himself. And they said, don't do it, man. Everybody's still here. That's a miracle,
Right.
right? Most guys that are stuck in jail, if the jail doors open, they take off, right? Everybody's still there. Jailer doesn't kill himself, right? So they know the consequences of staying, you know?
Yeah.
And so, because they're basically putting their lives in the hands of the Romans. And so they go to the jailer and they talk to him. They present the gospel to him. He gets saved, and his family, and and then they're like they still don't leave, man. They
Yeah.
stay there until the Romans come back, right? And that's something that I love. I love that story because it shows me that God's will is not always okay. God did a miracle. Now I can escape from all this stuff, right? No. And what happened was then the Romans came and they said, "Well, you guys unfairly put us in jail. We're Roman citizens, man. You can't do that, right?" And they spoke out, and then what happened was that they were finally set free. If they would have ran in the beginning, they would have been pursued and they would have been running forever, right?
Yeah.
But after God did His will with the jailer and his family and all that stuff, and gave us a great story for the Bible, then those guys were set free, and they didn't have to look over their shoulder the rest of their life either, man.
Yeah.
So, but it's not a human nature thing to do it that way, right?
No. Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is like they were able to do that because of their relationship with God.
Right.
When you don't have that relationship, it's hard to see. Even when you have that relationship, it's hard to
Oh
see it.
yeah, yeah. Because
You
at one point, like they said, they were praying, they were praising God, and they had to be saying, "Hey, man, we need to get out of this," right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And God moves and the opportunities there for them to go, they're thinking, "But wait a minute, why are we here?"
Yeah.
And then there's a jailer guy that's definitely in a low point of his life because if he doesn't kill himself, the Romans will probably kill him for letting the prisoners go,
Right.
right? But none of them left, and so it's just that's God's way of thinking about stuff, not our way. It's
Yeah.
not a natural thing to do.
Yeah. So we have the way we met was we have a mutual friend, Mark Bagley,
Yes,
Pastor Mark, and he has this thing that I love. You just made me what you said made me think about it. He says when he talks about tithing, he says God's plan or God's math is not our math.
right.
And principles like that until you see it, you don't. You're like okay, whatever, But when you see God's plan, God's, math work out. It's amazing the things that He'll do for you.
It's unreal. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, like kind of to my point of things get better. Uh, I'm not rich. My perspective on money has changed. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Right.
It's like uh, He helps you to see things in a different light and just be more satisfied in life. And I don't know. I love this life.
Well, and the whole tithing thing isn't about the money.
No.
It's about your heart.
Yeah.
It really is about your heart. I mean,
Yeah.
God doesn't need your money. He can get money from wherever he wants. He can make
Yeah.
it, but it's about your heart. He's
I
wanting to see where your heart is.
I think ultimately the thing that's changed for me is I'm just not as wasteful as I used to be. Because I mean, I tithe regularly now, and on top of that, stuff like Project Hope.
Right.
We not just that. I mean, we have. I'm not. I think I told you a story the other day. I don't like to boast about any of it, so I don't talk about it a lot. But it's like we see somebody in need, and we'll give them what they need.
Right.
If we honestly think, I don't want to let anybody take advantage of me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But if somebody's really in need and they're in a tight spot, we try to help them out. And for whatever reason, I make less money now than I ever have as an adult, and I give away more money than I've ever have, and my bills are still taken care of. And on God's math is not our math. On paper, you would think like, man, how is this working? But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's God though, and His faithfulness,
Yeah,
right? And we mature too, and
yeah,
learn how to spend our money better, right?
oh yeah, oh
So.
yeah. So you've talked about God's been a part of your life for a long time. Did you have a burning bush moment with God, or was it always kind of part of your life? Or
No, I went through a really hard time in my life when I was back like in 1982, 84 or somewhere. My mom committed suicide. She had a prescription drug problem, and that was about 10 years long. And then she finally uh, succeeded at what she had attempted many times before
yeah,
and passed away. And then, and I was married, and my wife left me like the same week. It was really a tough moment for me. So in my family, my father and my siblings had moved from Illinois to Arizona. So it was a really tough time. I was by myself. Now I knew about God uh, because my whole family had gone to a Baptist church for years, and I actually went there and actually got a little award from Sunday school for going to every Sunday for a year without missing any. But I wouldn't. I, I wasn't saved. I didn't really. I said the little prayer. They ask you to say,
yeah,
but it wasn't like a salvation moment for me. That came much later. Uh, I did that mostly for selfish reasons because the only way I could go out with the pastor's daughter was the. Well, I was a pretty selfish individual for a long time in my life, right? Um, so, but but yeah, then shortly after that, and I compare it to driving. I always compared it to driving. I love to drive. I love to go fast, all that stuff. And then I came to the point where, and this is exactly how I described it. I was I was driving, and I was out of control. I no longer controlled the vehicle,
mm,
and so that was a wake up moment for me when I realized that. And I said, okay, now I can't control all these circumstances that happen to me. So, and I thought I could. And so I said, well, then, my family says God's the way to do that. And so that's kind of what I did. Not in a Baptist church. I was in went to actually almost like a bunch of hippie type people. Like the pastor drove around an old Volkswagen Bug, painted up like psychedelic. And but he had told me about something I'd never heard about before, baptism of the Holy Spirit. And
oh yeah, yeah,
so that I was like, dude, man, all I know is, man, everything's messed up. and I don't know how to fix it. So, and I've been driving this and doing this myself, and I'm out of control now. So there's got to be a better way to do it. And he prayed with me, and then I just started going to this little church, and then after that, I went to another a little church that was a church start. Like a lot of times, most of my church experience was church plants, but and I just started walking it out.
How would you find out about these churches? I mean, because you're traveling from state to state, so
So in Illinois, I had an uncle that my grandpa owned a bar, and my uncle took it over after my grandpa passed away.
okay,
And grandpa is one of those guys that worked at Fiat Alice his whole life, or Alice Chalmers, making tractor parts. And then he retired, but he had his bar. Then he retired and he died 6 months later. So
oh
my
yeah,
uncle Denny took the tavern over, and and then he got saved in this little church. And then my Uncle Denny was my go-to guy. Like when I get in trouble, I call my Uncle Denny, not my dad. And so, because my Uncle Denny was cool, right?
yeah,
He wouldn't punish me, right? So, um, so then he said, "Dude, man," I said to him, I said, "Look, man, I don't, man, I can't control this. This is messed up." And so he goes, "Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, man. Why don't you come to church with me?" So he took me to that church, and then that's where it started really for me. And I mean, that church doesn't even exist nowadays, but it was just a little handful of people, man, spirit-filled folks that started doing something together. And for me, it was perfect timing. And then so then after that, I heard about another little church that was starting just a few blocks from my house, and so I just walked to church. I had my two sons with me, one in each arm, and we walked through the snow to go to church. Uh, and then I became real good friends with the pastor family, and that's how I ended up in Ohio. They were from Ohio. They had gone to Bible school and graduated and came to Illinois, started church, and so yeah. So it's just kind of like people that know people.
yeah. And then ultimately, you ended up going to Guatemala and living there for 30,
4 years,
40 years,
34 years.
or 34 years. Okay.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
That's um. So I did ministry in church, right? I
Yeah.
did like youth ministry. We did and I did a lot of evangelism stuff, like street stuff,
Okay.
and did events like Mardi Gras and things like
That's
that.
right. You were telling me about
Yeah,
that.
with
That's
organized groups, that would go down there and stay for the week. Usually finish out on Tuesday night before Ash Wednesday.
so
And
you were coming from what would you say, Ohio?
Ohio.
So you were coming from Ohio and then spending the week down in
Yeah,
Louisiana?
yeah, like
Okay.
big church that had a gymnasium. We would all stay in the gym, do hear a word in the morning, praise and worship in the morning, split up in our groups and pray and all that stuff. And there's like 1,500 people that would go hit the streets in Mardi Gras,
From all
evangelize from
over?
all over the United States.
Okay.
So,
Oh.
yeah, so that's what that's what I love to do. And so one day I'm sitting in church, and my pastor he'd just come back from Guatemala, and he was talking about climbing the mountains. They had to walk into the village, had to climb up a mountain to get there, and he'd fallen and broken a rib and all kinds of stuff,
Oh
right?
wow.
So he was talking about all that, and then I heard a voice behind me, man. It was so clear and it was so weird. And I really thought it was my friends were like jacking with me, because like when I was working with youth group and stuff like that, I was not the guy to go on the mission trips with the youth team or anything like that, man. I just wasn't that interested in missions, right? I, I, I liked what I did, youth and evangelism. Um, so I hear this voice, and it says, "I want you to go to Guatemala." I'm like, thinking to myself, right? I'm like, turn around, look, there's
Nobody's
nobody
there.
back there, man. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is messed up. And so, um, So I walk up after church and I'm talking to Pastor Bob. He, like I said, he's a, NBA guy and big, tall guy, and just one of the lovingest men I ever met. Best pastor, one of the best pastors I've ever sat under. And he said, "Hey, what's up, brother?" And I'm like looking at him, man. And I'm like, "Pastor Bob, I think God just told me to go to Guatemala. I don't even know where it's at." He starts laughing. He puts his arms around me, hugs me, says, "Praise God." And I remember clear as day, man. I remember thinking, man, that's so easy for you to say, man, because you don't have to go,
Right.
you know. And so I said, "Look, man, you got to help me get there. I don't know what to do."
Right.
And so he connected me up to a guy, call him full of love. And I called that guy and I said, "Hey, feel like God wants me to go to Guatemala on a short-term trip, and then we'll go from there. I don't know." So when he was starting a ministry that was going down to Guatemala 2 or 3 times a year, and so November of 1990, yeah, went to Guatemala for the first time, and I just fell in love with it. And we were doing evangelistic stuff and uh, things like that, and we went to the mountains, and I was in love with it, man. I love the mountain people and just the ruggedness of it, and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
uh, I mean, back then, a lot of the villages we went to, you had to walk in 2 or 3 hours hiking it up and down mountains and that kind of stuff. And
Pastor Caleb actually has a story of I don't know if it was in Peru or where it was at exactly, but it was like you could ride in the back of this truck up a really rocky
that was with
road.
me, yeah,
Or was it with you?
yeah, it was with
Okay.
me,
Or you could walk up. There was like a spot where they could hike up,
yeah.
and like I guess some of the youth was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a good time," and
Caleb's like, no.
yeah, and I guess they went, and it was it was a
Well,
journey.
we have a place called Lampacoy and La Higua, and on the other side of the mountain range from there, I have some other churches. So to so what I do is I hike people over to the other place.
Okay.
Now, depending on your condition, you can probably do it in 3 hours,
Yeah.
but most teams take 5 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so Caleb's people are like, yeah. So then Caleb's like, well, I gotta go with him. I can't let him do it by ourselves, right?
Right.
Then I drive the truck around the mountain, and we show up. I usually show up just early enough to unload the trucks into the stuff into the church, and then they start arriving, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's pretty,
Oh, Caleb was
it's
like,
pretty brutal.
yeah, he's like, I was covered in sweat and muddy, and like my shorts were all dirty, and
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, you're hiking on the edge of a mountain, man, on a
yeah,
trail that's only like 18 inches wide.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So,
man,
but that's what those mountain people do every day, man. Some of
yeah.
those guys walk, hour and a half to get to
Imagine,
church.
imagine a lot. There's probably a lot of people down there that don't have vehicles, huh?
I'd say most of them don't.
Yeah,
At least in the rural areas, it's
yeah,
because everybody's moved by pickups, man.
yeah,
That's the taxi in the mountains. They
yeah,
put 50 people in the back of a Toyota pickup, and
yeah,
yeah, maybe not 50, 30, maybe, but
yeah. Trucks squatting.
squatting.
Yeah.
Yep. 4-wheel drive, muddy, cliffs. It's crazy.
And what did you started multiple churches down there, huh?
So yeah, so we've started 16 over the years. And
So did you go? You went down there. You were gonna go for a short period of time. You just never came back.
so my job in Columbus, Ohio, they gave me a 2-year leave of absence,
Oh, okay,
and my commitment to the ministry was 2 years,
okay.
and then I never came back.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Wow.
so 2-year commitment turned into a lifetime.
Did it take some time to adjust?
For me, yeah, because when I first got down there, wasn't really anybody down there to help me. I didn't speak Spanish or anything like that, so I
And they don't
mean,
speak English.
no, especially in the mountains. You find people now and then, that have come here to the States for a short time or something.
What
But
did you do? How did you?
um, dude, man, I just prayed, man. It was, but like, I mean, just like my first day there, I got off a plane and I went to a hotel that we'd gone to when we did the team, and I stayed there, Pan American Hotel, just an old nostalgic hotel, a block off the town square in Guatemala, which is a big giant square, for military parades and all that stuff in front of the palace. But stayed there, and then the next day I asked the guy at the desk in English, "Hey man, can you give me a taxi or to go to the bus terminal for Zacapa?" So he told the taxi guy, and I'm assuming that's what he told him because that's what he did. Uh, Take this guy to the bus terminal and put him on a bus so he doesn't get lost. And the taxi guy put me on the bus to Zacapa, and that's what I did. I took off to Zacapa. So
Man, I mean, I'm all for adventure. I did some crazy adventures by the seat of my pants when I was young, but I just can't even imagine that. That is.
yeah, I didn't speak any Spanish, so and that was I had actually started. I was driving down there.
Did you had a place you were going though? Like you had a place to stay when you got there?
Uh, yeah, we had the ministry. It started to remodel a place, but mostly when I got there, I went looking for a guy that I knew there, a Guatemalan guy that when he was in prison, learned a little bit of English,
Oh, okay.
but he sold stuff in the market, and I went looking for him,
Okay.
and he helped me find a place.
Yeah.
So like, cause his voice was real distinct because he'd been yelling in the market his whole life.
Oh,
Those
okay.
vocal cords are like shot, right?
Yeah.
So, and they yell in a way that people can hear him, right? So I went walking around in the market kind of looking for that guy, and I found him. And then I just said house, and he understood what I meant, and so he helped me go to a place where I could stay.
Wow. I mean, I wasn't ready for that. You're blowing my mind. That is wild. That is wild.
So then the next day, um, I'd been to a village called Lampacoy because I'd taken 5 short-term trips by this time, down there over a 2-year period. So I started 90, and I moved down there in November 15th of 92. So so the next day I got on a bus to go up to the mountains because man, I just wanted to go to the mountains. And so I took a bus, and I knew that I had to go to this village or town called Mahuelas, right on the highway that goes out to the Gulf Coast. And then from there, I take a taxi to another place called Gualan, and then from Gualan, I take an old truck up to La Union, and then I knew from La Union I could walk the rest of the way. So like I went there, got off in Mahuelas, and I was standing there kind of waiting to see what to do, right, and where everybody would go, because I knew most of them were probably going to Gualan. And then this girl says to me, she grabs my arm, she says to me in English, she goes, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "Oh man, you speak English?" And she says, "A little bit." I said, "I'm going to Lampacoy La Union." And she says, "Okay, come with me," and pulls me into a taxi, and we go across the river and go to Gualan, and we go to like a lean-to, man, 4 posts and like corrugated steel roof, like dilapidated, falling down. There's a bunch of people there, and so she sits me down on a stump, and she goes talks to this guy over by this old Datsun truck
Yeah.
with no front fenders on it. The bed was rusted so bad it was flopping off the frame, and bald tires, man, like cord bald. I mean, you can see the cord.
Yeah.
And so she comes back and she goes, "When that guy waves to you, you run and jump in that truck." She said, "You do it really fast." So I sat there for like 20 minutes just staring at this guy because I was afraid I was going to miss it, right?
Yeah.
So um, finally he looks at me, and he waves to me, and I run and jump in there, and a whole bunch of people, man. We probably stuffed like 25 people in the back of that truck.
Do it really fast so you make sure you have a
Yeah.
spot.
So, but then
Yeah.
I ended up on the back corner the foot on the back bumper, which is just a steel tube welded to the frame,
Yeah.
and one foot inside, and then I was white knuckling the bed, hanging on, and we took off up this mountain.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're riding for about an hour on this dirt road, just getting the heck beat out of us, man. And I was waiting for the bed to come off, man.
Yeah.
You
That's what
know.
I was thinking.
So we stop and we're letting people off and picking people up at the same time, right? So we come up this one stop about halfway, and it's the weirdest thing. This lady had her baby, and she just was looking at me the whole time, right? And I'm like, this is weird, man. Hope she's not wanting a dad for a kid or something like that. You know, the stuff that
Yeah.
goes through your head, right? And so, um, finally, man, she just sticks her baby up in front of me like this and says something to me in Spanish. And I didn't even understand. And the guy beside me said, like, she wants you to hold the baby. I'm like, dude, man, I'm barely hanging on the back of this truck right now. But she's like sticking the baby in my face. So I grabbed the kid, man. I'm holding on to the kid and white knuckling the side of the bed with the other hand. And they take off up the mountain. And then, I don't know, maybe half hour later, man, I'm like shot. I'm exhausted. My arm's tired. And
Yeah.
uh, she, uh, she gets off and takes her baby with her, right? And then I found out years later, man, that she just thought that was a blessing for some gringo to be holding her kid like that all the way up this mountain, right? Because
Wow.
there ain't a whole lot of gringos that go up where I used to go
Yeah.
when I was going up there, right? So then I got to the La Union, which is a big town in the middle of the mountains. It's coffee. It's all coffee up there. Coffee,
Okay.
bananas, and oranges. So they use the bananas and oranges to shade the coffee. So, and this is a big town where all the little villages come, like on Sunday, to do their buying and selling and all that stuff. So, and I'd been there. So I walked through town out the other end and started walking to Lampacoy, which is like 5 miles away. I was pretty sure I knew the way, so it wasn't no big deal. But then some guy comes up and in a samurai, Suzuki Samurai, no top on it or anything like that, beat the heck, man. And he goes to me in English, man. He says, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Lampacoy." He says, "I'm not going there, but I can get you closer." I said, "Okay." Now there's two drunk guys standing up in the back of the Samurai. There's no seat in the back because they use it for hauling
Yeah.
coffee and stuff like that. So they're like holding on to that little cheesy roll bar that those things have. And so I climb up there and they put me in the middle. And then I realize they're both drunk as skunk, man. They're almost passing out. And we go around one corner and one of them almost falls out. And like I grab them with my hand and pull them back in because they only weigh like 125 pounds, man. So we go a little ways and then the guy has to turn off. He stops and he says, "Just go down this road and you'll find it." And the drunks got off with me. So then they walked for a little while and they sat down and I sat down with them and then one of them passed out and then the other one was just sitting there and I got up and left and started walking and went to the village where this pastor Theodore Asensio, who was he was like my spiritual dad down there, man. We became really close. And he was an awesome evangelist, church planter type guy, and so I walked to their house and they were surprised to see me. And they became like my parents in Guatemala, him and his wife. And he taught me more about church planting than anybody had ever done. So
So
um,
you said that was 92. Did they have like a landline or phone or anything?
now in La Union, there was 3 landlines. That was
Okay.
it. No cell phones, no nothing, and a telegraph office.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I would send them telegrams from the post office in Zacapa, like the DD. I mean
Yeah,
it
it's like
was
Morse code.
yeah, and it would print out, up there.
That's crazy.
So communication back then was pretty brutal, and so. But then I hung out with them. We ended up screaming at each other because we thought if we talked louder we'd understand. Yeah, it was crazy. It was nuts, man. I look back now at all the stuff that I did, and I'm thinking, man, this was nuts, man. There's got to be a more efficient way to do this stuff, but it's just it was my, it's how I had to do it.
No, that was an adventure, though. I
Yeah,
mean, that
it
was.
was awesome, man.
I can only imagine, like, your relationship with God probably just got way
Oh
stronger
yeah,
after that point.
yeah. It
Yeah,
was, yeah, because I was in God's hands, man. I mean,
yeah.
anything could happen.
Well, and you probably had a lot of time.
Yeah, I did have a lot of time because life's just different there,
Yeah,
and I had a lot of time alone, just being by myself because I couldn't communicate.
yeah,
I mean, I would get up in the morning when I was in Zacapa, and I would go walk to the market, which is an outdoor market, like 2 or 3 blocks,
yeah.
and I made friends with a guy at a store that spoke very little English, but enough to make me happy, right? And I'd hang out with him and practice Spanish and learn Spanish. I learned Spanish in the market. People, my wife makes fun of me still because my wife's from Guatemala. So she said, man, you speak Spanish like the people in the market, man. And I'm like, my wife's very educated. She has bachelor's in
Oh,
this.
so
And
is it like slang in there or
yeah,
something? Yeah,
so I'm like,
yeah,
I'm street talking, man, or
yeah,
mountain talking. So,
yeah.
uh, but that's how I learned Spanish. So,
Like a Guatemalan hillbilly or something.
well, that's exactly what we were, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I went. So,
Mm, man. So how'd you meet your wife down there?
so when I first went there, I decided to, well, I'd seen missionaries blow up their lives, down there in the mission field, and I seen a lot of them that didn't stay very long.
So you mean like go down there and not follow God?
Well, yeah, I want to fall into sin.
Yeah.
The pressure on a marriage at the beginning is really tough, and so, because of expectations, the guy doesn't have as much expectations as the wife does, and doesn't know how to handle her having to deal with this too. Because when you go married, I went single. But when you go married, it's just a totally different animal, right? So, and a guy gets so focused on what he's doing that then the family becomes like second fiddle. And so I thought, well, I don't want to do that, man. And the other thing was a lot of mission theology was go build a fort and then go out from the fort into where the people are, do your evangelistic work, and then come back to the fort, right? But I just never liked that. And I read all my missiology books and all that stuff, and I just never liked that way of doing things. And I thought, man, I didn't come here to live in a fort, man. I came here to meet Guatemalans and talk to them about Jesus, right? Um, so I thought, so best way for me to protect myself and to learn about all this stuff is to go to a Guatemalan church. So on Sunday mornings, I would go to church and sit under a pastor from Guatemala, even though I didn't understand them very much at the time. But I started getting to know people, started getting to understand a better idea of how they look at the gospel.
Yeah.
And so, and the good thing was that's when I met my wife at church.
At church. Cool.
Yeah. So,
It's kind of interesting. If you haven't met him, I need to introduce you to my co-leader. Do you know Shannon Walters?
no.
He stands at our one-to-one table, that little blue table. He stands there.
Okay.
He stands there quite a bit. But he felt called to. I'm not saying this. This is his words.
Yeah.
He's a button down. He'll call himself a hillbilly. Just always clean cut. Button down guy. Uh, did a career at the nuke plant. Kind of guy. And
Uh-huh.
but he felt called to spend time in Hispanic churches around locally here, and he said he would go not knowing anything, and that's how he says I don't know Spanish at all,
Uh-huh.
so but he says he doesn't know great Spanish, but where he all the Spanish that he's learned has been at church and
Yeah.
and restaurants,
Yeah.
so it's pretty interesting. He just for whatever reason he felt called to spend time around them, and that's how he's learned. And he actually brings some people to. He's got a guy that a gentleman that spent a little bit of time in prison. I may have him on as a guest later on, tell his story or whatever. But he's bringing this guy to our life group and everything because he's befriended his family through all that.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting. I was just your story is just making me think about him. But man, how many churches did you end up starting down there?
So we started 16 over the
16
yeah, over
churches.
the 34 years.
And are you like, did you ever pastor or were you more of like build them up or?
Yeah, I don't I don't know if I have the temperament to be a good pastor, you know. I don't know. I always like dealing with the pastors more than with the people in the church,
Yeah.
you know, which is interesting too. It's sometimes harder, but because pastors know it all, right? So,
Yeah.
but probably about half the guys I have working for me we raised up, and then the other half were guys that kind of joined in with us, you know, and started working with us and stuff like that. So, but my way of doing stuff, like, you know, I've taught this stuff too, man, how to go plant a church and all that kind of stuff, right? But I don't think any one of my churches has ever started the same way.
Oh, okay.
Everyone was different, you
Okay.
know. Like a friend that said, "Hey, man, I know this neighborhood where there's no church. Let's go over there." Okay, let's go, man. And you go over there, and most of it comes down to one thing: you go into a community and you start building a relationship with some people, and then you say, "Okay, now we're going to start having a service." And you start having service on somebody's porch, and then people start coming because there's nothing else to do in the mountains. And so, I mean, it wasn't back then. There wasn't TV or anything in the mountains, right? No phones, no nothing, right?
Yeah.
So the only thing going on was the church. So people would come whether they were saved or not, and so that's kind of how we would start everything.
So were people tithing or like how are you getting money to? Because eventually you built buildings, right? Or got buildings.
So yeah, most of my finances, even still, um, today, uh, the concept of tithing for them is really tough because they're so poor. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't really have anything to do with it, in my opinion. But so most of my finances came from the United States.
Okay.
So you know, people would come down. We would bring teams down, uh, trying to get involved in missions, but also watching the trip, what effect the trip had on them. You know, because once you go to a mission on a mission trip, man, you never be the same.
I've heard that.
It'll
Yeah.
it'll change you some way. So in a good way, you
Yeah.
know. So so the idea was bring people down, and some people be like me will be touched and feel like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be, right? Some people will be, okay, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. I can't do this, but I got money,
Yeah.
you know, and so they feel to give. I mean, probably half of my support when I was living down there was, um, yeah, half my support is people, just normal people from church that say, hey,
Yeah.
man, you know, they came down and they it touched their hearts and they felt like they could be a part of that. And
Okay.
so they start helping us. So then projects, you know, you get churches that say, hey, we want to build a church, and they get all the money for it. Or I try not to do, I might buy all the material, but then the people got to build the church.
Yeah.
Because if they don't have any sweat equity in it, it's
Yeah.
just not the same.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, we don't understand anything about that's, like you saying going down there will change you. I mean, we, as Americans, we don't understand any of that.
Right.
Man, that's just, man, I want to go. I just, my kid's at a weird age. Like, I'm like, you know, I, what my plan is when he gets a little bit older, I want to take him with me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Is
no, I've
is
had
really,
quite a few fathers bring their kids with them.
yeah. He's a little young for that. Like he needs to be at the age where I could be like, you need to stop, and he'll stop. Right now, he just
Yeah,
keeps doing whatever,
right,
you
right.
know. we've already started talking about, because he wants to visit other places. He's talked about visiting other places, and I'm okay with facilitating that. But I've already started talking to him about having respect for other people's culture, and you know,
Right. Right.
as Americans, we do a lot of things that other it's not okay in other places.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah, yeah, and I have to have those talks with groups before they
yeah,
go to the mountains. You
yeah.
know.
I mean, I don't even fully understand that. I just
Yeah.
know it's a thing, but
Yeah.
I don't even fully understand it.
So yeah, yeah. I mean, but that's the good part, right? That's what um that's good because people are going down there and they're seeing the difference. It helps them, you know, love where they live better too.
Yeah,
Usually, but it also gives them another perspective. Okay, yeah, man. I mean, God's blessed us, so we. And I always believe, and I always tell everybody, we're in the lineage of Abraham, and Abraham was blessed to be a blessing, and we're all blessed to be a blessing, especially people in the United States.
yeah,
It's more of a spiritual blessing, is what my point is. But in the United States, we have a financial blessing too. That we're to bless with that. So,
yeah,
and we're to bless with that in a way that there's no possible way for us to get back from it.
yeah. Hmm. I think uh, being being materialistic myself, and being you know just raised up as an American, and I thought a blessing was monetary,
Yeah,
and now, man, God has changed me so much over the last just in the last 4 years. Like seeing people get saved, seeing people start to get sober, seeing people just trying to live a little bit better. I mean, that's a blessing, man.
yeah,
Like people that I got a customer that man, we talked about God a little bit. I mean, I if you're a customer of mine, you're gonna know that
yeah,
I go to
yeah.
church. I mean, that's just all there is to it. And one day, a few weeks ago, he goes, "Man, what time do you go to church?" And I told him. He says, "What's the address?" And I told him, and we were about to pull into there to the church, and there's a couple gas stations right there. I saw him pulling into the gas station. He lives like 40 minutes from here.
Wow,
I saw him pulling in the gas station. I was like, yes. And he's been every week since,
that's awesome, man.
and that's a blessing,
And that's what it's about.
Yeah,
That's what it's about.
yeah. Man, I'm getting chills right now just thinking about that right. My son got baptized a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
It's like, those are the blessings. Like, uh, my wife and I have been turning our lives around for the last 4 years. We're still growing every day,
that's good.
and people around us are not ready to make changes, but they are like talking to us about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's the blessings.
dude.
You know?
Yeah, it is the blessings, and just coming home and having peace in your house. That's a
Yeah.
blessing, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
little stuff. That's just well,
Yeah.
that's a pretty big thing, but
Yeah.
um, and just not having the load of I got to figure all this out
Yeah.
because now you can go, okay, Lord, um, help me out with this.
Yeah.
And when the Holy Spirit tells you to give some money to somebody, and you're thinking, um, I don't know how I can afford to do that, and then, but that's not an equation anymore. When the Holy Spirit says, "Okay, I want you to do this," then you do this, and then you know, God's going to take care of it, man. I've lived my whole life in Guatemala in missions doing that, man. I mean, there's times when I had enough money to put fuel in the truck or go eat. And
Yeah.
I put fuel in the truck and I go to the mountains and evangelize people and talk to people. And man, I'll tell you, I always ate good, man. Black beans and tortillas, eggs.
Yeah.
Once in a while, we have a joke that we say in Guatemala that all the hens take off running when the pastors come to town because they know some of them are going to be eaten. So, but that's just God just blesses. So,
Yeah.
but we have to make that decision to walk in. Okay, I'm blessed to be a blessing,
Yeah.
and that comes with finances. But more than that, it comes with the spiritual freedom that we get to walk in that a lot of people aren't walking in.
Man, I was so attached to my money that I wouldn't give money to anybody. Like if I saw somebody begging for money on the side of the street, I would be like, "You need help getting a job," or I'll go get you a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give, because I was like, "Oh, what are they gonna do with it?"
He'll buy some drugs with it or
Yeah,
something.
whatever.
Yeah.
And then and then God was like, when I first become a follower, it was like all the time, you're gonna give this person money, you're gonna give that person money, and I was just trying to be obedient.
Right.
And man, I was able to share the gospel so many times by that. The very first time I gave somebody money, this person told me what they were like. They were gonna go begging for money in a truck stop, and I was like, I don't know if that's a good idea.
Right.
And I drained my bank account. This person needed a bus ticket. I drained my bank account to get them the bus ticket, and I was like, I don't know. My next paycheck is in. I was working at the time. I was like, my next paycheck's in a week or whatever. Well, the next day, every bit of money that I gave that person came back to me. You know,
Wow.
and that's I'm not saying it's always going to work like that because I
Right.
know it
It's
does.
always different.
It's always different, but that was just God teaching me that obedience was the right way.
Right.
And He hasn't asked me to do that in a long time. I don't, I mean, like I said, I still give to people, but I don't have what I used to have to give. But it was His way of breaking me down and showing me that it's okay to give. I gave money to a guy in Conway, and I asked him, I was like, "What are you addicted?" I mean, I could see it on his
Uh
face.
huh.
I'm like, "What are you addicted to?" I was like, alcohol, pot, whatever. He's like, meth, and I was like, "Okay,
Right.
that's fine." I was like, "Come here."
Right.
I was like, "I'll give you this money, but you're gonna come talk to me for just a minute." And he knew, like he knew that God was real,
Yeah.
and he was homeless, and he was telling me how he was like destroying the homeless camp when he'd get messed up, and even his homeless friends didn't even want to be around him anymore, and I was like, look, I don't know if I'll ever see the guy again. Maybe I will. I don't know. God works in different ways, but I told him I was like, I don't care where you go to church, because I mean I'm in Conway. I
Right.
couldn't invite him with me. He was on a bicycle, but it was a Saturday. I was like, just go to church tomorrow, man. I was like, I just had this feeling it's gonna be exactly what you need, and like now's the time. So I don't know, but I hope that encounter. I was only able to give the guy like $5 or
Right.
something, but I hope that encounter planted the right seed. Like
Well, and we're just called to plant seed, right? We
right,
can't really change anybody. The Holy Spirit has to do that. So, but we are called to go into all the world, preach the gospel of creation, right? So,
right,
so we're to give testimony of uh, God in our lives,
yeah,
and that's what's so important about living a good testimony.
yeah,
And it's not a perfect life. It's just being a good testimony.
yeah,
So, but yeah,
yeah,
it, it's like with the whole giving thing, man. Like me, like I was blessed in the sense that as soon as I got saved, I started tithing. So, and I don't really even know what. I just knew they were asking for tithe at church, right? So, I just started doing it, man. I didn't know anything biblically about tithing other than okay, they're throwing a plate in front of me and I got to give, right? So,
yeah,
somebody had mentioned 10% to me, so that's what I did, right? So,
yeah,
but like my wife's from Guatemala, so she grew up there, and they were poor, and she poor financially, and
right,
so she didn't understand me. And then that time she was trying to protect me from her own people who were, some of them were probably taking advantage of it, and
yeah,
stuff like that. And I always
yeah,
said, look, man, we just give, we just do it in obedience, and then God's responsible for the rest of it, right? I can't
yeah,
control every dollar I give to somebody, man. I can't do it,
yeah,
and I'm not gonna, because that's gonna take away my peace. If I gotta, and if I start thinking that everybody I'm giving money to is just trying to steal from me, then that takes away my peace, right?
yeah,
So now she gives more than I do.
yeah,
So it's just she's just a really giving person, man, and she's she just yeah, and my kids have seen us do this for years, so
yeah,
now my kids are givers too. So that principle in their lives is it's pretty well set
Yeah.
in, right? But they learn by watching us, or like my kids, just to help them, I'd see somebody that needed some help, a mom with a baby, asking for money in the street, and I give my kids some money, and hey, can you take that over to that lady? And then it would go from there, and it would go, hey, Dad, can you give me some money to go help that lady? And then so now they work themselves, and
Yeah.
I mean, my kids, like my oldest daughter, she's got her own baby now and all that stuff, and she goes through her own financial struggles and all that kind of stuff. But she sees somebody in need, she's gonna give them what she can,
Yeah.
you know. And so I feel blessed in that sense because I was blessed to be a blessing, and I blessed my children, and now my children are a blessing, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a cool, um, you know, it's just kind of a cool set of circumstances where God just used that to now they know and it's in their heart,
Yeah.
so they'll always be that way.
I didn't. I was kind of the same way. I was just told. I went to church before I got sober for like 6 months or a year, and
Uh,
then I ultimately fell away from that. But at that time, I tithed, and because the church said I should,
mm-hmm.
and I did it. I didn't do it out of anger. I did it obediently or whatever.
Right.
And man, for whatever reason, that all the time the I could make ends meet while I was tithing.
Yeah.
Like before that, I was always coming up short, and then after that, I was always coming up short. And so when I got back into church, that was one of the first things I didn't know the principles behind it, but I knew that if I would tithe, like everything would work out. I didn't realize that was God's you know me being obedient to God or whatever. But then when I got back in the church, I still didn't understand it. But I said to like anybody that questioned me about it, I was like, they're running the air conditioner for me. They got coffee and donuts, and they got the all the lights are on. The pastor's planning all week to make a sermon. They got nice chairs in here for me. Like they got to pay the rent or mortgage or
Everything.
whatever it is. I'm like, I'm happy to pay for the service that they're providing for me.
Well, and the worker's worth his wages, right?
Yeah,
People say, well, we got to keep the pastor poor so he can. Well, that's garbage, man.
yeah, yeah,
The Levites weren't poor people, man. They were the
right,
priests that were supported by the
yeah,
people, right?
yeah,
They were probably financially better off than a lot of the people, but the thing is, it's not about what we think it is sometimes,
yeah. Well, then that's what I was getting at. Is I learned that uh, it's not it's not even really about the money. I mean, like you said earlier, it's a
No.
heart situation, and that's kind of like I kind of wanted to circle back to this. I'm glad I thought about it again. When you were talking about the sinner's prayer, but
Mm-hmm.
salvation came later. It's
Right.
kind of the same thing. It's a heart. It's
Yeah.
a heart thing. It's not. It's not about. And until you get to that point, it's hard to see it like that. But when you kind of start to understand more what it's really about, uh, man, it makes it way easier. And like you understand, like this has to be a part of my life.
Right.
But
And I would say, like for me, I mean, I talked to a lot of people that backslide, right?
mm-hmm,
Our favorite word for
yeah,
Christians that aren't doing what they're supposed to do by our standards, anyway.
right,
They're backsliders, right? And I never had that experience, and I thank God so much. Now I was pretty cruddy person before I got saved, before I really made that commitment, right?
yeah,
But from that moment on, I never looked back and
yeah,
thought, like when the Israelites crossed the desert or the sea and all that stuff, and then they start, hey, we had it better off when we were in Egypt, and all that.
yeah.
Stuff. I never had one of those moments in my life, man. I never looked back from the point I really made the commitment. Man, it was all about leading people to Jesus and going after God.
I'm in. I just started Judges. It's taken me a long time to get through the Old Testament. I read all the New Testament. That was easy. I was like, okay, now I got to have a better understanding for the Old Testament. I don't know. It's
Some
it's
of those
taken me a
books are
long.
hard.
It's taken me
Deuteronomy,
a long.
Leviticus.
Yeah, Leviticus was man, that was vicious. But man, uh, the thing that like what you were just saying, the thing that I've realized about the Old Testament is it shows what happens when you don't trust in God. You know, like those, especially that up to Judges. You
Right.
know, it's like as long as they trusted in God, everything went their way. And the moment that they quit, it, things started happening. And uh, I don't know. It's just the Old Testament has taught me a lot about the way my thinking is. I don't know. It's just it's weird how it's taught me so much.
Well, there's a lot to be learned there, right? We'll
Yeah.
never learn it all in our lifetime,
No. No.
but
But I think once you get hungry for the Bible, I mean, at first the Old Testament's really hard,
yeah,
But once you get hungry for the Bible, there is a lot to learn
for
from
sure.
from the Old Testament.
I just love the stories, man.
Yeah.
I love the stories, So, and I love like Caleb's one of my favorite characters in the Bible, man. And
Yeah.
Caleb and Joshua, but Caleb is just
They were the scouts.
yes,
Yeah.
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 So Caleb, just the Bible says at one point when they came back and all this stuff was going on, and these were the princes. They sent 12 princes out to scout the land, right? They weren't just your everyday folks. These were the princes, the people of stature, right? The smart people, the people that those are the ones they sent out, right? And
Yeah.
10 of those came back and turned into a bunch of miserable gossips and they gossiped against Caleb and Joshua and all that stuff, But the Bible says that Joshua and Caleb had a different spirit, and I just love that where the Bible says that, right? They had a different spirit. They trusted God.
Yeah.
They trusted God. Look, we see all the same things that these other 10 guys are seeing, right?
Yeah.
But they see him through a different set of eyes. They see him through a set of eyes that are focused on my God is more powerful than all this, right? And those other guys couldn't see that.
You just made me the way you just explained that. It made me think of the scripture about the narrow path.
Uh-huh.
It's what they were talking about. I didn't realize that till just now.
Yeah.
That's what they were talking about, even in that story. Is not a lot of people are gonna get it.
Nope. But and really, the only way you're gonna get it is if your focus is on God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because they, like I said, all 12 of those men saw the same thing.
Yeah. And you gave. We were just talking about tithing, but you gave so much. Just being obedient and going to the Guatemala and doing everything that you did. I mean, uh, man, you give so much, and it obviously it shows. It's because you trusted in the
Yeah.
Lord. And
God is. I feel so blessed because I got to do that for
oh, I'm
34
sure it
years,
was
right?
amazing. I'm sure there
Because
was.
I've done that for so long. But I'll tell you the truth. When I left to go there, man, they told me, you got to have this big support base and all that stuff. And man, I'll tell you what. There's times when I got $100 for a month
Yeah.
to survive on, man. And so I was eating in the mountains, man. I was sick. First year I was there, I was sick about every other week, man, just because I'd been eating in the mountains. And
Was it
but
just stuff there? Like the locals are fine, right?
yeah,
It,
yeah, just different bacterias, It's
yeah.
like now I lived in Guatemala so long. When I come back to the States, I go through stomach issues for a few weeks till my body gets ready,
Yeah.
used to it, right?
Yeah.
Just about the time to go back home, my body gets used to eating in the States. But I have to say, I love what I do, and um, how many people really get to do that?
Yeah.
And look how blessed I am.
Yeah.
And it's never been a money issue. It's always been just let's just do it. And I've always been that kind of a guy. When God says jump, I say how high.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of whether or not I'm going to jump. It's just a matter of up to what point am I going to jump.
Man, it's I'm I'm happy that we did this because
Yeah,
I
this is
love
fun.
I love hearing this. That's it's it's been amazing. Was there anything? I got one more question for you, but was there anything else on your heart that you kind of wanted to put out there? Or
No, we could be here all day if I start
yeah,
putting out my heart stuff.
yeah,
So,
okay. Well, maybe we'll have to do it again. But
yeah.
so my final question that I ask everybody is, if there's one thing that you could tell the men out there in the world, what would it be?
Um, I read a book once that says finish strong. I would say finish strong. Don't quit. Don't quit. I know it's tough, man. Believe me. I know it's tough. I mean, I've sat in the middle of the mountains all by myself all night long in a rainstorm. Um, wake up the next morning and a landslide 3 feet from me, a whole side of a mountain went down a mountain from landsliding. And different things have happened to me. I was alone a lot of the time, and things like that. And there's times when the devil would come up to me and say, "Look, man, you had a good job back home. You had a good ministry back home. What are you doing here? And I was just like, this is where God told me to be, and I can't quit. And there are times when I wasn't sure too, and I just said, so if I'm not sure, I just keep walking in what I'm walking in until it gets revealed to me. So it just comes down to my goal in life is just to finish strong. I don't want to fade away. That's why I like Caleb when we talked about Caleb, right? Because Caleb, when he was 80, 5 years old,
Mm-hmm.
he got what God had promised to him. 85 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He had fought like a 45-year-old man, a 40-year-old man, till he got to be 80 something years old. So he was still physically healthy, right? He was walking in God's will, and that kept him healthy, you know? And then God said, "Okay, now's the time. I'm going to give you the blessings that I promised you. You've been faithful. You've walked it out. You stayed the path. Now this is what I'm going to give you." And he got it, the land that had been promised to him, right? I'm kind of living that myself now, man. I'm 67, and um, Caleb's just always been my idol. I've always told people that I'm gonna I'm gonna be like Caleb, man. When it's time to lay down the mission field um, in Guatemala, then um, I'm still gonna be healthy enough to continue to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb went back and worked that land that was promised to him and was able to develop another life, another lifestyle, right? But as he walked in that, but he finished strong.
Yeah.
And I would say, man, you gotta have um,
And that, I mean, that goes for anybody, like anybody,
anybody.
and no matter what you've done or what you've been through, I mean, you can always finish strong.
You can finish strong. You
Yeah,
decide. Nobody else decides for you.
that's great advice.
Because even
Yeah,
if your life is junk, you know what? You decide on what you're gonna do with that moment.
yeah,
So um, and if we just focus on God and just keep taking the steps, you're gonna finish strong.
yeah.
If you start thinking, well, I'm going to finish strong because that's who I am, right? Then you're probably not going to because pride's gotten into your life and you think you can do it all by yourself. And
Yeah,
that's not true.
yeah. Man, that's some great advice. Um, like I said, I've enjoyed this today,
Yeah,
and
been good.
yeah, we'll have to. People may not realize this, but we've just met,
Right.
So maybe when we
Less
get,
than a month, right?
yeah, yeah. So maybe when we get to know each other a little better, we'll do it again and do
That'd be
something
great.
different,
That'd
But
be awesome.
well,
Thanks for having me on here, man. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
no problem, no
So,
problem at all. My pleasure.
and it's great to be hanging out with another motorhead too,
Yeah,
man.
well, yeah. I think I've had some other guys on that have been that enjoy cars, but not not at the level. I think me and you are pretty close
Yeah,
on that level. So, but all right,
cool.
well. Uh, so if you've made it this far, I would just encourage you to subscribe, like, share, whatever you got to do on the socials to get this out there and get it to people that might need to hear this message. But Like I always say here at Garage Ministries, we're just trying to help you live a little bit better life.